Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is another sketchbook tour. Now this would be sketchbook number 4 of my total sketchbooks that I have been working in. And this is starting mostly from all the sketchbooks that I found or started in 2025. So this sketchbook I started July 24th, 2025, and my first piece was actually completed on the 25th. And then I actually completed the sketchbook December 12th. So it was about 5 months that I was working in the sketchbook. A little less, it was like 4.5 months. Okay, well, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get this started. So my first piece is Sylvia. I'm gonna have to move you, Mr. Kirby. You are unfortunately in the way this time. This journal is a lot bigger than my last one. So this one is my D&D character Sylvia. So this one I actually liked at the beginning when I was working on it. This is my D&D character Sylvia. She is a Eldrin, half Eldrin cleric. I had to think about that. She's a half Eldrin cleric, half Eldrin, half vampire, therefore a Dampier. And she is a dream-eating Dampier. So she has a lot of dream and celestial bodies, specifically star kind of and moon symbolism in her, which is why we have this star kind of background. And she really likes butterflies, and butterflies also have their own kind of symbolism. She was just top of mind. A lot of the watercolors that I had were very her color scheme. I have a lot of purples, blues, greens, and so I was very excited to use those to make this. And I really like the shading on her legs. Everything below here I like, everything above I don't like, mostly because I messed up her face. I think if you watch the time lapse that I have on my channel, you can see the moment I mess up is when I line it and then I'm like, oh, I want to make an adjustment, and that was the worst mistake to make because I did not have waterproof pens. I don't have, what are they? Oh well. But I had to make my first piece Sylvia. I love her a lot. And even though this doesn't look that great, it is what it is. It's a sketchbook. And I think something else about this is that when I draw people, especially when it comes to a smaller scale, I'm not very much used to working in these smaller scales. I'm usually a digital artist. I'm very much used to working in bigger canvases, zooming in, zooming out. And so this was also testing those skills. And I think you can see that translating here of me trying to test this. The other thing that I should mention is that I try really hard not to erase. I try really hard to live with my mistakes. So there are some anatomical mistakes here, and I know that, and I'm very well aware of it. And I was just like, we're just gonna leave it and learn from that in the future. Going on to the next pages, we have these two. So starting on the left side, this was, I think, still using my Gincraft paints, but this one is called a Tiefling Princess, I believe. And I really like this fish here. One thing about me is that I love painting fish, specifically koi fish, but I love painting fish. I don't know what it is. This was originally actually going to be a different D&D character that I drew inspiration for the hair color and the skin tone. Their name is Nozumi. They are an NPC in the campaign Shattered Memories that my character Sylvia is also in. And originally she was going to be her, but I decided for once in my life, I didn't want to make the character look exactly like somebody from D&D. I decided to be creative. And on this side, I don't really know what I was going for in the end. Originally, there is some kind of hints towards this being Selena, who I've painted multiple times on this channel, who is Sylvia's mother. I say that because these butterflies are purple and green, and they are slightly in reference to Sylvia and her father. Sylvia is the purple one, her father is the green one. Her father is always in spring form. So originally, That was kind of what I was thinking, but I really wanted to have a different kind of color scheme. But I still kept the purple and green butterfly because I was like, I really want to I might as well just leave them as they are, right? So that's why they're there. I will be honest, I do kind of like the way the background came out. Like, this is obviously a forest, but I like this kind of blue desaturated bottom to this forest line, this tree line. I like how that came out. Originally, I wasn't sure how it was going to work, but I do like how it translated in the end, how the colors laid out, this gradual transition to these darker desaturated colors to show a different sort of depth to it. And I think in the camera, it honestly looks a lot more vibrant than it is, but it's actually pretty desaturated if you look at it in person. And I should mention that this is Valhall paper, and this was the first time I had ever gotten that kind of paper before. It has a rougher texture than your Arches paper and your other more typical thought of watercolor paper. It has a rougher texture, and knowing that this has such a rough texture, I cannot imagine what the actual rough paper texture that they have looks like, because they do have a rough paper texture. I cannot imagine what that's like, because this is pretty rough, and this took a bit for me to get used to. That did impact the way I painted because I was not used to this paper. So a lot of my earlier pieces are also a little bit messy with that, because I was like, okay, I don't know how to handle this paper. I've never painted with this paper before. We're skipping the previous pages. I did those later. I sketched them early on. I did them later. So here is my 2 tarot spreads. This is the sun, this is the star. So this was at the peak of when the DM and I of the Shattered Memories Dungeons and Dragons campaign were talking about making a tarot deck of the campaign, using all the characters in there, or not all the characters, but using as many characters as we can to make that tarot deck. Now, we had talked about it in 2024, but last year I finally decided, you know what, I'm gonna sit down and actually start working on them. And this was before we actually came up with designs for some of the characters and their cards. This was just practice, and I figured, why not try to do it in the sketchbook, since I'm trying to paint people, so maybe this will give me an opportunity to paint some of the D&D characters, get some experience painting characters that I have designs for, that I know what they look like, and see if I can replicate their likeness in this. These are the only 2 I do in here. I did try to do some in the future, and I completely scrapped it. And these 2, actually, I don't think they turned out too bad, but I think Sylvia's came out better than this. Is Kaze. This character belongs to the DM, Strawberry Witch. I think hers came out better than Kaze's for a couple of reasons. One, I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do with Kaze's just yet. He is the sun, and I was having trouble kind of figuring out what kind of symbolism I wanted in there. Obviously, I wanted there to be a bit of a darkness here, and I wanted him to be cutting through the clouds, because he has a lot of cloud symbolism on him too. His name is Kaze, it means wind, but he has a lot of cloud symbolism to him too. And he has a bit of a dark past. So I wanted the sun to be behind him, and I wanted him to also be symbolizing the sun. And I think in the future I would just remove the sun and just make it him instead, because I wanted it to look like he was cutting through the clouds, through that darkness that is still in there, in that headspace that's kind of clouding your mind, you know, still once again cutting through that. So that's why I also included the clouds. I did print these actually, and versions of them printed. The bird gets cut off and the butterfly. I have to resize these so that they actually, you know, look like they're print ready, because I did not adjust them for print. But obviously I made some edits from the sketch to this one. You can see I made some edits. I included the butterfly and the bird because Kaze's 2 partners are Sylvia here and Genesis, who I actually painted previously. We'll come back to that page. He is a bird lover. He has a lot of bird symbolism with him, and his color scheme is blue and gold. So I included them because they are very big in his life, and that kind of symbolism is very important to him. I would be doing him a disservice if I did not include them. So that's why they're here. And then we have Sylvia, which she is a star. Obviously, she symbolizes hope. She is a big hopeful character. She gives people a lot of hope. She saved this guy because he was originally on the wrong side of history. She convinced him to change his mind. It threw the campaign into a completely different direction than the DM originally planned. Haha, that was also like session 8. That was early on in the campaign. Oops. But she's very lovable, and she has been a very bright beacon to a lot of her very dear friends, and to even to people that I don't know if they particularly like her, but they at least acknowledge that she is a very bright person. So she is the star. And obviously I wanted to have star symbolism in the background, but I wanted her to really be like the star and her kind of pouring that hope onto people. And obviously it's not executed very well in this one because it is just a sketch and I didn't really know what I wanted. I have what this looks like digitally. Obviously I think it looks a lot better digitally. Has a bit of a shine to it. It's very nice. And obviously the butterfly got cut off, and this is a bigger butterfly, and I changed the colors, but I don't know if you can see it very well, but there are butterflies at the bottom, and there are hands reaching up, kind of symbolizing that they're reaching up to this hope and to not give up. And there's light on the other side, and she's holding this kind of, it's not a vase, but this like galaxy of light that's just shining down on these people to give them that hope, that to not give up, you know. And these people are on this desaturated color to kind of show that they are in need of it. So that was the main thing that I did for her. Nonetheless, I like this page for what it is. And yeah, moving on. So this is another iteration of the star. I hate this one. This one was a very messy sketch. The anatomy's all off. Honestly, this was mostly a doodle. I'm not gonna lie. This was mostly a doodle that I decided to paint, which is why it's all wonky. This one, though, I do like. I think I like this one simply because of the way the colors flow. This is... Who do we think it is? It is once again Selena. Now, she's not actually going to be the official moon tarot card in the deck. She is kind of an honorable mention to the moon because she is... If you watched my previous speed paint of her, or my time lapse of her, she is, I call her Selena, chosen of the moon. So she has a lot of associations with the moon, and I won't get into too much of them there, but I figured I would just show that kind of symbolism here, and I thought she would be very fitting for the moon if that was the one we decided to go with. So now, I didn't realize how early this was in my sketchbook. Now that I think about this, but this is the first piece in my watercolor and horror series of 2025, and this was before I even decided that I was going to do a watercolor and horror series. But this is actually the piece that inspired me to do it, that made me think about doing it. But originally this was going to be the only one that was going to have a story because I just thought about it. It's called The Onlookers. If you watch the video, it's called The Onlooker story. And originally, this was honestly supposed to just be a cute little 2 witches in the forest that are just in love. That's why these tree branches just have the little heart there. That was originally the main idea for this piece, was just I just wanted to draw 2 witches in love and make it a cute little Halloween piece. Because I don't know, I just decided, why don't I do something cute? And then I just have this pumpkin in the background watching, this little ghosty in the background watching. And then I was just walking one day and I was like, what if I did a horror story associated with it? And I was like, okay, so what would the horror story even be? And then I focused really much on this pumpkin. I don't know what it was, but something about this pumpkin, I was like, and this pumpkin here, I was like, what if they weren't originally pumpkins? What if there were people that were too curious about these witches? And it derailed from there. So, if that doesn't tell you how my brain works. But I don't know, I like this piece. I like the colors. I like this tree a lot, and I like this tree a lot, and I like how it's able to do the lighting for this too. Moving on, we have two other pieces. Now, if you watch my watercolor and horror series, you would know, whether you just watch the time lapse or the actual stories, you know that these two were not actually the next videos to go up after the onlookers. I actually uploaded them out of order based on the way the stories were going to connect, and originally the stories weren't actually supposed to connect together, so that was a decision that I made very late into what would have been a considerably good time to actually start making the decision. I believe I just called it the Candlelit Circus. And I quite like this one. I like this one not for the face, ignore the face, but I like the dress. I love how I painted the dress. That is probably my favorite part out of this piece. And also her legs down here, because I like how naturally the colors flow together. This one is probably one of my favorites. I've found that my best women are apparently the ones where you can see their backs. Selena is also one where I paint the backs of them. And I like this one quite a bit. I honestly don't like the outfit. It's a little bit too bulky in the back here. But I like how the shading worked once again. And I love how the gold pops, and the gold pops up here on that piece as well. But she actually was originally going to be my D&D character named Katla, who's a drow. And she has her hair dyed black, but her hair is very straight. And she's a little bit of a lighter skinned drow, mostly because she's half drow, half wood elf, I believe. So she has some warm undertones. This is strictly cool. She was originally supposed to be Katla, who is a vampire as well. Love her dearly, but decided against it, made it something original. Moving on to these two pieces, I wanted to do something simple, something cute for Halloween, mostly because, I don't know, I was doing so many more sophisticated looking pieces. I was like, why don't I do a kind of lighthearted Halloween one? So a crow taking a bath, a green witch. I turned them into horror stories. And honestly, these two, I struggled quite a bit to figure out what horror story I was going to attach to them. But I really like how this came out. We're gonna ignore this for a bit. This piece was the one that I finally committed to the watercolor and horror. I actually have to go back after this piece. But this was the piece that I finally committed to the watercolor and horror, and it was going to just be death. But I decided to do a little bit of a twist. I love how the blood came out on this. I love that their dress kind of folds into the blood, and that ultimately takes the form of whoever is the last person that kind of died in your life that was very important and was basically coming to your house to be like, okay, so who's the next one going to die? If you lived with a lot of people. If you didn't and you lived alone, you knew it was you. Basically, that you were going to die, that you were going to be the sacrifice to the planet, quote unquote, end of year harvest for the earth as return for everything else that the earth has contributed to your survival. So that was basically the story that came of this one. And we actually have to go back at this point, because the day before I worked on this, I actually worked on these two pieces. Complete contrast from what we were just looking at. But these two are my character Genesis. I talked about him when I was talking about the Kaze Tarot card. And this was because I finally got that ultramarine set that I've mentioned before. And they have a lot of blues in the ultramarine set. It's an ultramarine set, of course it is. And I thought that set would be perfect to paint Jen. So I actually sketched this early on and said I'll come back to it when I finally get those. And I also really wanted my glitter paints, my shimmer paints for this piece as well, because he has so much gold on him and it does shimmer and it does shine. And I wanted that to really pop. And you can see that in the camera too, just the way that the light hits that gold. And I like this one a lot. This one is okay. This was my first time doing a close-up portrait, and you can tell. He didn't turn out wrong, like bad, I guess, but it's not my favorite. But now we go back to this one. So this was the second piece that made me fully commit to the watercolor and horror series idea. And I think these two are very much companion pieces. Like these two really solidified it for me. When death comes, time ticks away. Or when death comes and time ticks away. Something like that. That is the companion titles. Like I feel like these two stories were the ones that I knew what I wanted to tell the best. And now we have this one. I forgot I left the sticky notes. This is actually my idea for this piece called The Wedding or the Hangman. And this one is the Ace of Cups. So they have a little bit more going into them. I feel like the Ace of Cups is pretty self-explanatory. I feel like this piece is not very ambiguous for how I can lead to the Ace of Cups in a horror tarot deck. You have your heart and the blood coming from the cup, held in a hand with the bird eating it. I feel like that's a pretty self-explanatory kind of, if you know what the Ace of Cups means, then I feel like there's not too much to question here. But I like this one quite a bit. I like the colors. I like this bright blue that's just a stark contrast from all of this red and black. But I like it a lot. I like this one quite a bit. Now, the wedding / the hangman requires a little bit more explanation for why I called this the hangman originally and the wedding second. Like, the hangman is sometimes associated with being at a kind of standstill, being not moving forward. You're not moving anywhere. So I decided to go with this kind of wedding piece, kind of to have two different ideas. This idea of feeling trapped or unwilling to do it, especially in a horror themed one. This unwillingness to get married or feeling like you have to and there's no other thing to go about it. And the pews look more like a jury stand where people are going to be judging your marriage and how well it goes and the person you're marrying and who you are. Whether that crowd is filled with people that you like or people that the person you're marrying is like. Do you like this family? Do you like these friends? I'm gonna do this kind of cross here where the hangman usually is, but instead it's just the shadow of the bride instead of actually being like the hangman here. Those are the flowers kind of thrown off already. Nobody there to pick them up. You know how after you get married they throw the flowers? Nobody is getting them. And then I have the red moon up here, and I also wanted this to kind of have that eclipse appearance to kind of show this kind of reflection. Like I wanted it to be this but opposites. So that was kind of my focus for why I called it the hangman. It's a very abstract approach to it, but I just call it the wedding. We move on from my watercolor and horror series to the paintings that precede the Sylvia and Friends series. So these are just two random people that I decided to draw. This was originally going to be my D&D character named Cherith, who is a cleric drow. But I decided not to do that in the end. And she's just some random girl. I'm gonna be so honest, I don't know who she is. Then we have baby Sylvia in summer form. Like I said, she's have allergens, so she can change some of her appearance, not all of it. And honestly, I like this one quite a bit. I do like how deep these shadows are, but they're a little bit too deep. This is Nami. I actually really like her a bit. I think she came out really pretty. The colors do not blend as nicely as I would like them to, but I do like how they came out. And honestly, I gave up. There was supposed to be bubbles here. I gave up doing that. Yeah, I just couldn't execute it the way I wanted, so I gave up doing that. But I like her face. I think she looks very pretty, and I like her hair, so I think it came out nice. Then we have Daisy. Now, a little bit of context. Nami is one of Sylvia's good friends. She's actually more of Sonara's friend in the next page, Sonara. But Sylvia is still pretty close with her. So this is basically her core friend group that I'm showing right now. This is Daisy. This was honestly one of Sylvia's first friends, if not her first friend. I think Daisy was her first friend. Sylvia met her at a coffee shop. She does not like coffee. But she works at a coffee shop. She makes the smoothies and the baked goods. But she's very cute. She is such an airhead. But she's a unicorn. She's just a regular old gal. And this is Sonara. I think Sonara is like Sylvia's second friend. Because Sylvia actually works at the aquarium with her. She plays music at the aquarium, Sylvia does, and Sonara, the mermaid, dances, and they put on performances together like twice a week. Now, I also painted these 4 girls in my last video of 2025, my last time lapse of 2025. They were actually the 4 that I painted in that final piece. And now we move on to Xavius and Senja. Senja is my character. Xavius is the DM's character. Xavius is actually a very good friend of Sylvia. She worked very hard to befriend this man because he's very quiet, he's very to himself. He has had a lot of bad experiences, so he doesn't talk to people. They met during dance, and Senja is also in that dance class. He is Xavius's partner, and they are a long time coming. They should have been dating a lot sooner than they were, but it is what it is. Next, we move into the unlikely duo, Julius and Issy. I really like how Julius came out, which is funny because Julius is not even one of Sylvia's close friends. They are acquaintances, they know each other. They don't really talk. He is actually really good friends with my character Genesis, though. So they are really good friends. They go to music club together. And then we have Isidora, or Issy. I don't like this piece for a myriad of reasons, but the main reason is that Issy is just an elf. Like, she's just an elf. She is not blue skin at all. And I did this because I wanted to try an attempt at blue lighting with a black background and like some bright lighting here. Do I feel like that was executed well? No. I do not feel like that was executed well at all. Her face, I love. I really liked it before I painted it. And then I painted it, and that's where everything went downhill. That's where the mistakes were made. So, it is what it is. Moving on. We have Kaze and Darez. The best friends that were never supposed to be, the duo that have gone through time and time again. They have a complex history, y'all. But in this timeline, in the Shadow Memories timeline, they're just very good friends. They're best friends. They met because of a little side thing that the DM and I were doing, where I introduced Darez to Kaze and it derailed from there. That's usually how D&D things go, don't it? I think I like Darez's more than Kaze's, mostly because I feel like the colors really work well for Darez, whereas Kaze's just, he has a deeper skin tone, and I have trouble getting that level of depth that I want with my watercolors. That requires a lot of layers, and every time it dries, it just looks lighter than it is. And one of these days, I'm gonna get that level of depth that I want in his skin tone, but that's just not happening yet. I love that my camera, because I pulled him up, it's very warm lighting right now. I have a white light, y'all. I love when videos automatically color correct. Anyway, I like them a lot. I got to use the gold shimmer on him too, because he has gold markings. Next, we move to Akash and Yoru. Now this is actually one of my favorites. This is another one that looks like my digital art. I think this may actually be one of my best pieces of Akash that I've done, and I've drawn Akash quite a bit actually. He has been drawn quite frequently. I think I've drawn him like 5 times. I love Akash. Akash is one of my favorite characters, one of my favorite NPCs in this campaign. And obviously this is the Sylvia series of friends. So Kaze's her partner. I had to include Darez because Darez is Kaze's closest friend, so I included him by association. And this is Akash, who is Sylvia's closest friend. Just like they're best friends. They gossip all the time. She worked hard on this one too, y'all. She worked hard to get to know him, because he's one of those people that would just talk and talk and talk, but will never talk about himself. This is Yoru, Akash's partner, which is why he's on this page, once again by association. I like him too. I think these are a really good set of portraits. I think skin tone has always been something I've had trouble with, trying to figure out how the best colors to kind of use to make the best skin tones. And I feel like I was starting to find that a little bit. Of course, it's still a little bit on the gray side, but with the limited palette that I have, I'm quite content with the colors that I have here. I do need to get like a burnt umber or a burnt sienna or something like that in that palette that I have, because I don't actually have browns, and the brown that I'm using is a little sample that I got. So I do need to get myself like that color or something, because I've enjoyed working with it. Next page. So this is my moon goddess, or my bunny and goddess painting. I don't remember what I call this, to be honest. I like these colors a lot. They're very pastel. This is me for the first time kind of settling into pastels, because I feel like in the rest of this journal, I've had a lot of deep colors. I've had a lot of reds, blacks, deep purples, deep blues, and I feel like this is the first time I really settled into the pastel side of my color palette. And I really like this one, mostly because of the bunny. I think the bunny came out very cute. Another pastel piece. This one I know is like Cloud Goddess, I think. Which, you know, very much goes back to my roots of when I was really starting to post online. Specifically where I had painted this piece called Head in the Clouds. Now, if I have that piece still on my laptop, I will put it up on the screen here. I have always had this kind of Head in the Clouds kind of theme, and I was doing a whole series for it at one point, and then I stopped. Because that was back when I was kind of focusing on this kind of semi-realism style for a bit. This is kind of like, it feels like a bit of a homage to that Head in the Clouds kind of piece. But this kind of made me think of that, so glad I was able to do that. This one is a very, I don't know what compelled me to make this piece. I don't know what it was, because it's a complete contrast from the last two pieces that I did. And it's a complete contrast from everything else that I was doing. But it's basically an angel piece, and it's up to your interpretation whether or not you think this is an angel or a fallen angel. I really like this eye. There's a lot going on in this piece, and I don't actually know how to explain what my thought process was on this, because I genuinely do not know what inspired me to make this piece, but I do like it. And I do have a quote that I made up here. It says, "Under the hollowed eyes of the angel, does it shepherd your soul or simply measure the flaw that will undo it?" I don't know. I genuinely don't know what inspired this piece, but I really like it. I think one of the reasons is because I have this angel character named Amal, and he is teetering between a fallen angel, a true fallen angel, and something else. And he does not look anything like this character that I've drawn here. But I think about him a lot in a much more detailed way than he thinks about himself, because he does not have a whole lot of free will going on in his brain. He doesn't have a lot of thoughts happening up there either, which is a byproduct of just not being able to think for himself too much. But he does do it. Does he do it well? No, but it doesn't matter. Next, we move on to a different set of pieces that are a little bit on the less heavy symbolic side. So these two contrast each other. This is an angel. This is like a succubus or something, some sort of demon-like entity. They were just doodles I decided to paint in. I don't actually like these too much. They were just supposed to be in direct contrast to one another. I don't mind this one too much. This one's fine. I don't mind this one too much. I think I like the blue hair. I think it's alright. It's just not my favorite. Next is my Hades fan art. I hadn't really been playing Hades when I made this fan art, but I was watching my friend Strawberry Witch play Hades, and I was just like, man, I miss drawing fan art, because I don't draw fan art anymore. That used to be the only thing I drew, and I don't do that anymore. I'm mostly a original character artist, a D&D artist. I don't really do fan art anymore. And my peak fan art era was when I was doing fanzines. This one is a bit of a homage to my Brief Respite piece, my Brief Respite Hades piece, but it is one of my most popular arts that I've done. I contemplated making this him coming out of the bloodbath after he loses, but I decided I wanted to stick to this kind of green coloring, and I think it came out pretty good. And I always draw the shades so cute, but they don't actually look like that in game. Anyway, I like this one a lot. Next, we have more angel demon things going on. Now this one, I think I was just really into these eyes. Really like how this one came out. This one is hit or miss for me. Mostly because I feel like the face is a little less defined, and I feel like if I line this one more, it probably would be fine. It's just the edges are not very well defined because I didn't line it too much. I used white obviously as a highlight, but I didn't really line like the face or anything like that, so it loses some of the sharpness to it. But I was trying to once again do another piece where I didn't line it to see if I could bring out the shadows for it. This one I like because there are no eyes here. They are hollow, but not hollowed. They're hollow and the eyes are up here. And judging with only the mind in this case and not emotion, not tied to the heart, and only here judgment based on the higher power that is decreeing what should be true and what should not be true. Guess who? This is Sylvia. This is Mythica. Now, I did Mythica a bit of a disservice by not including her in the Sylvia and Friends piece, but to be series. But to be fair, Mythica was very crucial to Sylvia, like pre-campaign, and she made a reappearance in the campaign, like in game, like a couple of months ago, after Sylvia had not seen her for over a year, and they used to date. I think they had been dating for like a couple of months before Sylvia disappeared and lost her memories and had no recollection of who she was or who anyone was. All she knew was her name. And they recently reunited again, and they are dating again. Congrats to them. That was a recent development. But I decided to finally do a piece here, and I thought it was nice to have like a shimmering moon, and the shimmering moon again, but with the warm colors, kind of implies that she is the star, and this is the silvery moon, and she has a lot of silver gray in her as well. She has a crow in the background because crows are kind of important to her family, unfortunately, and Sylvia has her butterfly symbolism. But I finally decided to paint these two, and I had to make sure to include her at least once. Sylvia's hair is a lot longer than this, I will say that, and I'm pretty sure Mythica's hair is a lot longer than this too. It may not be, I could be wrong. Another Sylvia and Selena piece. Who would have guessed? Now, like I said, I can only apparently draw a woman with their backs facing us and not forward. I don't know what it is. This is Sylvia. This was another one of those things where I kept the sketch and did not fix it. Her head is way too big, but we won't talk about that. I kind of like this piece because of the connection between Sylvia and Selena and her mother that she has recently been able to reconnect with through a lot of magical means and a very powerful boyfriend. And Sylvia herself has really been channeling her own abilities to connect with her mother and her mother's abilities to connect with her. So it's been a very complicated story. I haven't actually drawn them together, so this is actually the first piece I ever drew of them together in one scene, which is kind of crazy to think about. But when they fully reunite, then I will finally draw a piece digitally of them reconnecting. But as of right now, they're only really meeting in Sylvia's dreams, which has always been the case. Sylvia has only met her mother through her dreams, which, you know, as a dream eater, a dream vampire, it makes sense. This one is this? It's a Sylvia and Kaze piece. I'm not painting them together. I think this is the first time where I got the browns the way that I want them for Kaze. It's still not as deep as I would like, but I like them. They're better than previous examples of me trying to do it. And I don't know, there's something very soft about this. I like this piece a lot. I decided that I needed to at least end a couple of my pieces with Sylvia in them, which is why there are 3 pieces of Sylvia in them. But my last piece is not actually Sylvia related at all. It's actually related to a completely different character who's been on my mind a lot. But I think this is just very sweet. I figured I had to include a Sylvia and Kaze piece because I love them very much. Their relationship and the way it started out was kind of crazy. I could talk about these 2 for hours, but he was very protective of her at the beginning because at the beginning she had someone that was stalking her. It was a team member at the time. It was stalking her. They were being a little bit weird around her because they knew each other in the past, and they were very much clinging on to that. And it was making Sylvia uncomfortable, so he was pretty protective of her about it, but I digress. I like this piece quite a bit, and I had to make sure that I captured them at least once in this sketchbook. Now we go to completely different vibes and not romantic at all. This piece is called Yusei, the moth. Now Yusei has a bit of a complicated history as well. He is my character. He has a very not good story to him, but in the most recent saga of his life, he was yoinked by this ancient being called the Bereaved, who essentially trapped him in a realm of hers and slowly was just disintegrating his sense of self, disintegrating any sense of understanding, acknowledgement of the world around him, being able to wrap around reality, who he was, etc. And he was originally a tiefling, and he was slowly converted into a moth, that sort of transformation. And this is his current form that he looks like right now. This is what he looks like right now, losing his tiefling self, and he can turn into a moth, a death moth in particular. And I don't know, he just lives in my head a lot. His counterpart that is front facing, his name is Xanthic. And he is an airhead. He is silly goofy. He just wants good vibes, good friends, love and fun. The sense of self happened so strongly that it kind of separated him into 2 different people. This person that had no memories of who he was, Xanthic, had no sense of who he was, could not remember anything that happened to him in the future or in the past or in the present, like just could not remember, retain anything. And then there's Yusei, who remembers everything inside his head, just stuck there watching like some out-of-body experience. He's much more serious. He didn't used to be, but the experiences that he's gone through has just kind of dampened him a little bit, which is unfortunate because I like him a lot. I spent a lot of time working on him, but I really like this piece. And then we have my final piece, which is another Xanthic Yusei piece, but this is actually Xanthic this time around. And that kind of lost transformation phase is kind of a parallel to this one. And these eyes are Yusei. His eyes are supposed to be green and gold. This is supposed to be a green eye, not a red eye. But it is what it is. It's fine. It doesn't bother me too much. It's not critical to his character design for the most part, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, this is the final piece. This back piece is the summary, and now I can choose my favorites. So my number 1 favorite, this is not in any particular order to be honest, is that wedding / hangman piece, then the Ace of Cups, and then I like that Nami piece, and then of course Akash is on this list, my Hollowed Eyes piece, and then my Hades Zagreus fan art, and then What Remains Yusei, this piece, are my tops in this journal. So I don't know, I had a lot of fun working in this. I like this sketchbook quite a bit. I think something I'm learning with all my handmade sketchbooks that are bound like this, that there does run the risk of your watercolors running in between the pages if you're not careful. That's what happened with this piece. This is not a blush right here. That is actually bleeding from this piece. Like the red just bled through. So that is one of the risks that I found from working in this sketchbook, is that these hand-bound sketchbooks that bind them the way that they do. Thank you for coming to this sketchbook tour. It is on the longer side. I had a lot to talk about on certain pieces, and I did preface this video with the fact that it was probably going to be a longer one. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know which one was your favorite in here. I was very excited to record this one because I've been done with this for a while, and it has some of my best work of 2025 in there. Please let me know what your favorites were. I look forward to hearing about it. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you minded this long format or if you would prefer that I condense it even more. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will probably have another sketchbook tour coming out soon for my smaller sketchbooks, which is this one. I have to make one for this, and I also have to make one for this one. So you have 2 more sketchbook tours coming out in the future very soon. Hope you're looking forward to them, and I will see you all later. Bye bye.